Alright, so this video is over Barry Season 4, Episode 5. I'm just going to get into it. It is super weird that Barry's kid doesn't know about Call of Duty even from school, although I think we later find out that he's basically homeschooled. Barry's kid is just as weird as his parents. His parents have definitely rubbed off on him. What Barry's kid said to the other kid is super creepy, what Barry told him to say. I hope we can be together next time in harmony. If I was a kid, I would be pretty freaked out and weirded out by that. It's a massive, massive time jump. I mean, 8 years is a big time jump. It's one of the biggest and most ambitious time jumps I've ever seen in a TV show. Maybe the most ambitious. Um, so Barry's saying you messed up, but you took responsibility for it. That's pretty much the opposite of what Barry does throughout the series, where he continuously fucks up, but he doesn't want to take responsibility for it. Doesn't want to take responsibility for the consequences of his actions. You would think that Sally would just dye her hair or something, but I guess keeping her hair blonde underneath the wig is her keeping in touch with her old life, and also kind of makes her do this whole like getting ready for work thing that's like getting ready to act. It seems like the family doesn't have a TV, which is pretty interesting. It seems like Barry is kind of living in his own version of heaven, while Sally is living in her own version of hell. Sally's saying you can buy a lot of stuff with pennies, like socks. That's pretty funny. You can tell she's pretty drunk in that scene. The Lincoln stuff in this episode makes sense, given that Lincoln was assassinated in a theater. Theater and that kind of stuff is super important to the show. It also makes sense that their kid is named John with the whole John Wilkes Booth thing. I didn't notice that Barry and Sally were arguing about her being an alcoholic until I turned on the subtitles the second time I watched the episode, so that may have gone over a few people's heads. I did question that since when are Barry and Sally religious? You would think that maybe they were doing it to fit in, but they go to church alone or at home. But I guess them living in like middle America, it kind of makes sense that they're religious. It's fitting that as fugitives, the couple gets everything delivered to them, so their time out in public is pretty limited. I was super surprised that Sally was gonna cheat on Barry, and I was almost relieved that she ended up assaulting the guy. It does fit with how unhappy she seems that she would mess around with such a low life guy like Bevel. Uh, Barry showing his kids the danger of baseball is pretty next level fucked up. I mean, I can't imagine my dad doing that to me at the age of 8. This episode in general reminds me of stuff like No Country for Old Men and the movie Fargo. It's easy to forget that Barry is a war veteran who probably suffers from PTSD. That does seem to get kind of lost among everything in the show. That there's a few different reasons why he's so fucked in the head. I did question who was knocking at the door. I thought it might be the neighborhood kid or something, the neighboring kid. You can hear footsteps whenever Barry steps out into the dark, but there's no one shown making the footsteps. And then that scene where Sally and John are sleeping in the bathtub. I've actually slept in a bathtub when I was staying in a hotel because my mom wouldn't stop snoring. It's super uncomfortable to sleep in a bathtub. I totally thought that the gun in the wall would be like not in a hole but in a safe, so it was pretty funny that he just sticks it in a hole in the wall. Barry staying outside all night after the knock shows you what a psychopath he is. He just stands there and stares out into the darkness. The part with Larry Chowder, a magical boy, that was apparently comes from one of the writers working at a video rental place, and someone saying Larry Chowder, a magical boy, but meaning Harry Potter. I wonder where Jun Cousineau has been hiding this whole time, and how he got out of America. You'd think it'd be somewhere like Latin America or South America, maybe Mexico. He does look like he hasn't shaved or had a haircut in like 8 years. And I did kind of question how Cousineau found out that they were doing a movie about Barry. He could have maybe kept in contact with someone in Hollywood, maybe his agent. The speech about clean living from this episode is apparently taken from Bill Hader's first landlord in LA, who gave him a similar speech. And then I noticed that Sally blames Bevel for the stealing that she herself does, which is pretty cold-blooded, but does fit in with Sally's character. Bevel is apparently a carpentry term. The actor playing Bevel, he plays a similar role in Better Call Saul. I want to say it's season 5. It might be season 4 or season 6 of Better Call Saul, but it's a similar role. And Clark being Barry's alter ego could be a reference to Superman and Clark Kent. Barry really only changes his appearance by putting on glasses, and when he goes into hiding, so that could be a reference to Superman and Clark Kent. I noticed that overall Barry is just really not good at being age appropriate with his son. There's almost no music this entire episode. It kind of shows how boring and empty their lives are, and how empty of entertainment, and how kind of same all the days are for them. The I'm gonna have to kill Kusino. That was a great ending for this episode, and really sets up the end of the season. Them being so isolated, the family being so isolated, it makes sense given that this season was apparently written during the pandemic. I did come up with a list of words to describe this episode: purgatorial, eerie, nightmarish, empty, depressing, unhinged, suffocating, dark, surreal, dreamlike, and uncomfortable. This episode did kind of remind me of Saul and Kim's new lives in the last season of Better Call Saul. It's like it's a parody of Middle America. It also reminded me a bit of Twin Peaks: The Return, in that they're both depictions of kind of odd depictions of Americana. This episode was divisive, I think. It's the lowest rated episode of this season so far on IMDb, and it may be the lowest rated episode of the show so far. I didn't check all of it, but I think it's pretty close to being the lowest rated. The average viewer may not have understood why there was such a time jump, the reasons behind it. And apparently the idea of a time jump really invigorated Bill Hader when he was writing this season. Now I'm going to get into some predictions for the rest of the season. Apparently Barry is going to Hollywood to try and kill Kusino. That seems obvious. I could see him succeeding in killing Kusino, but I could also see him wanting one last conversation with Kusino, and that kind of fucking up him killing Kusino somehow. Like him wanting some kind of weird closure from Kusino. I don't know, or wanting to make Kusino understand why he has to die. I think NoHo Hank will be some kind of criminal overlord in LA, like a big shot in the criminal underworld. I do think that NoHo Hank, if he shows up, will probably be shown to still be single and still fucked up from Cristobal being killed. I did think that maybe Barry will have to interact with Hank in order to get at Kusino for some reason. Like maybe Barry goes to NoHo Hank for a gun or something like that. Or Kusino goes to NoHo Hank for protection or something. I don't know. I bet we're going to get some scenes of Kusino on the set of the movie about Barry and Sally. We almost have to see Fuchs again, but with how experimental the show is, I could see him not coming back for the rest of the season. I did question if Sally and John will go with Barry to LA. I kind of think that they won't go. That would make more sense, but then that would make them absent for the rest of the season, which would surprise me if we don't see Sally again. It wouldn't surprise me if we don't see John again, but if we don't see Sally again, I'd be surprised. So they almost have to go with Barry to LA. And I do think that the Kusino storyline being such a big deal means that we will be seeing Jim Moss again. Thanks for listening/watching. Please like and subscribe. I'll be back next week. Please like and subscribe. Thanks.